This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Burgamy.
Can you believe it? Most of May is now in the books. Where on earth does time go? Hi everybody, so glad you tuned in for another brand new edition of the Farm Monitor. I am Ray DeLessio.
And I'm Kenny Burgamy. Yes, time flies and so does the show when we get rolling. Now coming up, some disappointing news for all the Georgia peach lovers out there. A late winter freeze devastated this year's crop, leaving growers with just a fraction of their overall harvest. However, there is some good news regarding the peaches that do make it onto the shelves. Now get ready for a wild ride as we gear up for a shift in weather patterns. Experts say it's just a waiting game to see when those conditions will set in and what it means for the producers and their crops. And then later, as a continuation of a story we brought you last week, we look further into Georgia's ongoing feral hog problem and havoc that they wreak not only on traditional row crops, but also on the habitat on Cumberland Island. These stories and so much more start now on the Farm Monitor.
Well, nothing says springtime in the South quite like a sweet Georgia peach. However, those might be more difficult to come by as this year's crop was devastated by a late winter freeze. Damon Jones explains the impact this will have on the market and the potential effect on their quality.
This time of year is usually a cause for celebration for peach growers around Middle Georgia as their months of hard work finally comes to fruition. But there won't be too many smiles this year as freezing temperatures late in the growing season have them harvesting just a fraction of their overall crop.
We're kind of estimating somewhere between, 20%, 25% of a crop, something like that. And that varies by variety. So, most of the damage was done kind of early in the season to the early May crop. But we have peaches all along. So, in terms of kind of local peaches, there'll still be peaches. But in terms of, shipping to major grocery chains and that kind of thing, it's just going to be very slim.
While temperatures have been colder in previous years, this is the worst damage growers have seen in quite some time, due mainly to the freeze showing up at the worst possible moment.
The stage the peaches were at this year when the freeze came, that's really what caused most of the damage. We had peaches this big in some varieties, and once those peaches are past bloom, out of the what we call the shuck, that kind of wrap around that baby peach. Once they're past that bloom stage, past the shuck split, they're very, very susceptible to damage. Any light frost can really harm the peaches there.
And just like that, growers see a year's worth of planning, pruning, and patience take a major hit, which leaves them with plenty of frustration.
Yeah, it's very disappointing, very disappointing. We were hoping for, a great season this year, looking forward to picking a lot of peaches. So it's really, you get all the way there, right? You're, not quite to harvest, but you've done a lot of work. And so it's certainly disappointing in terms of not having the fruits you hope for.
However, the silver lining is the peaches that do make it onto the shelves will have the same kind of quality consumers have grown to expect.
Right now, peaches look good. They're growing. I think they might be a little bit in terms of early this year. So, that's one thing we're watching now and being able to communicate with people and buyers is timing, but overall peaches look healthy, look good. The trees look great. It's just not many on there.
And that will obviously have an impact on the market as demand for sweet Georgia peaches is unlikely to fall while the supply will be severely limited. That means shoppers might have to pay a little more this year to enjoy Georgia's signature fruit.
Yeah, certainly prices are going to be higher this year just based on limited quantities and just the short crop. But we'll have peaches in our market, all season long, and we just won't be kind of shipping out and packing as many peaches as we would normally do.
Reporting from Crawford County, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Well, here in Macon recently, Georgia Farm Bureau hosted its annual Evening of Champions. This event is all about recognizing 10 amazing students who worked incredibly hard on their livestock projects. Students were crowned grand champions and received a cool belt buckle as well as a big check to celebrate their accomplishments. The event not only rewards these young champions, it also inspires other students to participate in livestock showing.
The Georgia National Fairgrounds is there because of young people. And that's what the whole mission of the fairgrounds is, and what we can do extra to help encourage that through FFA and 4-H and recognizing these people is what we're supposed to do. And like I say, I hope it turns into future ag leaders.
You know, it's no secret that farmers and producers are always at the mercy of Mother Nature. Our state's weather and climate can make or break a crop, and this year experts are predicting a shift in our weather pattern that could certainly impact the farming industry. Lucky for us, our very own John Holcomb has some insight on what farmers should expect.
With spring inching more towards summer, producers will soon be finished getting this year's crop in the ground and will begin shifting their focus towards harvest. However, getting that crop to harvest successfully depends on Mother Nature, which has already given many farmers and producers a wild ride so far this year.
What we've seen is that the temperatures have been above normal, and a lot of that has to do with how warm February was. You might remember February was really far above normal. Everything was blooming early, and it caused problems later for the fruit farmers, because then we went into a cooler period in March where we had a couple of frosts, and that really caused some problems for especially peaches, but some with blueberries as well. Precipitation-wise, most of the state has gotten a decent amount of precipitation. Probably the driest part of the state right now is the southwest part.
According to Knox, the southeast has been in what's called a La Nina weather pattern the last 3 years, meaning conditions have been warmer and drier. However, all indications suggest that we're currently transitioning into cooler and wetter conditions known as an El Nino. At this point, it's just a waiting game to see when those conditions will set in, which Knox believes will be this November.
So right now we're in that period, we're transitioning from a La Nina to an El Nino, where we call those neutral conditions. That's in between those two. And in neutral conditions, there's not a lot of predictability of what's going to happen this year. Not necessarily likely that we'll see a drought. It's been dry this winter, so sometimes when you leave a La Nina, you can get drought, but we've been pretty wet, so I don't know that we're going to see that this year, which is probably a good thing for the farmers.
According to Knox, however, one thing producers should consider as we enter those cooler and rainy conditions this fall is the potential impact that it would have on getting their crops harvested.
If El Nino comes on quickly, as most models predict it's going to, we could see an early wet fall, because that jet stream could set up over Georgia by fall, which could cause problems for some harvests. So I think farmers are really going to have to be watching this fall to make sure that if there's a window of dry weather, they're out and making the most of it.
Another consideration is the impact on the tropics. According to Knox, El Nino weather patterns typically mean a less active tropical storm season, which could be both good and bad news for farmers, as storms can certainly damage their crops, but producers rely on the rain throughout the summer.
When we have an El Nino, we tend to have fewer storms. Now, we can still have strong ones. Hurricane Michael was in the beginning of an El Nino episode, so it only takes one. But we get a lot of our rain from tropical storms in the summer, so what that could mean is we could end up with pretty wet conditions and maybe an early active tropical season early in the year before El Nino really sets up. And then later in the fall, once we get that stronger El Nino really going, we could see more rainy conditions and, less likelihood of having a tropical storm.
Reporting in Watkinsville for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
John, thanks so much. Well, chances are you've seen one line on the road stiff as a board. Or if you're like my co-anchor here, one might be rooting around your house, causing your blood pressure to skyrocket. After the break, how to control armadillos and what you should do if you're fortunate enough to catch one.
Well, usually I don't dive into personal stories here on the show. However, this month I'm breaking that rule to share a saga that's been keeping me up at night. Talking about my ongoing battle with an elusive armadillo who's been wreaking havoc on my yard. Now, maybe some of you can relate. That is why I decided to revisit a Ranger Nick segment we did back in 2021 about armadillos, their habits, and how to catch them. And maybe together we can finally nab our little problem. Then, and only then, will we have some peace and tranquility, not to mention a yard that doesn't resemble a minefield.
Arnie, meet Dr. Mike Manjack. Dr. Manjack is a professor and wildlife extension specialist with the Warnell School of Forestry and Natural Resource. Hey, Mike, good to see you.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you letting me borrow your buddy here. He's being such a good sport about all this. Doc, I want to talk a little bit today about the idea of how active these guys might potentially be this time of the year. First, because typically in the fall or summer, I'm seeing armadillos in the headlights of my car in the evening time. As we get into the winter and it's colder, I'm seeing these more during the day. Explain that to me.
They don't thermoregulate real well.
Okay.
So they tend to be more active in this time of the year, in the winter,
Okay.
during the warmer part of the day.
Okay.
In the summertime, they tend to be more active in the cooler part of the day, which
Interesting.
is at night.
Okay.
So in the hot summer, they stay active at night when it's cool. In the cold winter, they stay active in the day when it's warm. So they flip their timing of most activities with the seasons. So they
Interesting.
cue into temperature, not really daylight as much.
Good. So they're not hibernating. They're
They're
out.
not hibernating. They don't hibernate.
Good. So they're looking around for what when they're active?
Food. They're insect eaters.
Good.
So
That's it.
grubs and insects in your lawn and your leaves and your mulch, but strictly insects. They're not predators on anything much
Interesting.
bigger than grubs and earthworms and spiders. They're not chasing mice or bird eggs. You know, they'll eat some bird eggs, ground nesting birds occasionally.
Really?
But just
Okay.
if they stumble upon them. They're not real active hunting predator type.
Now, that's good to know. I immediately go in my mind, and maybe the folks at home are wondering about this too. You hear about leprosy with these guys. We talk about their activity, and maybe when we're out during the day more in the winter. Is that something we should worry about if we happen to get close to one of these? Because I've been able to get pretty close to them before.
Right.
What do you think?
They can get leprosy.
Okay.
And people have gotten leprosy from them, but
Okay.
it's pretty rare. It comes from either eating undercooked meat or handling them without gloves on, or in some places where they're shot, messing around with them without gloves on, without
Okay.
proper protection.
Okay.
Just basic gloves. You should do that anytime when you're skinning an animal anyway.
Absolutely.
So leprosy is not really anything we have to worry about. It's a bacteria. It's treated with antibiotics. It's
Okay.
pretty fragile bacteria. It probably doesn't live very long in the soil. And the CDC website says that 95% of people have natural immunity to leprosy anyway.
Oh,
So
good.
you
I'm
really don't have to.
probably safe.
You really probably don't, unless you're eating raw armadillo. You probably don't need to worry about it. Just cook your armadillo good.
Well, and that's important for the Southwest out there too. I've heard that folks eat these guys, and it's interesting. I imagine last thing to wonder about, of course, rabies. This being a mammal, something to worry about?
Not really. Any
No?
mammal can get rabies, but armadillos don't transmit it. So not
Good to
really
know.
anything to worry about.
I want to talk with you next, Mike, about how someone at home might know that they have an armadillo problem. So let's go look for some evidence right now. Well, you never know what you're going to find out here when we're taping a Ranger Nick. Beautiful red-shouldered hawk right there. So, Mike, here we are out around a homeowner's home. Talk to me about how we might know that we have an armadillo problem.
Well, you're looking for sign. Most animals are secretive anyway, so you're looking for sign. So they're going to be little diggings in the leaves like this, where they're looking for grubs or worms or
Okay.
insects or spiders or something like that. And there'll be small patches. They won't always be that close together, but just small patches where they're digging in the leaves looking for food.
Okay, and you might even see maybe their claw marks in there. as they're
Possibly,
looking.
if the soil's right. Possibly.
Okay, cool.
Another thing to look for is maybe a den or a burrow, and we found one of those here. Look how hidden it is here in this forsythia, and then you can tell this one's not active. It's full of leaves, but that's the den right there where he's dug up underneath this root, and he'd go in there. So you're looking for a hole that's probably oblong,
Okay.
oval,
Okay.
and maybe 6 to 9 inches in diameter.
Okay.
Is about the size of an armadillo hole. So anything smaller than like that, maybe chipmunks. Anything bigger than that, I don't know, fox or coyote maybe or something. But
Interesting.
about 6 or 9 inches and kind of oblong, kind of oval.
All right, so what you're looking at here is an armadillo trap. Before today, I didn't know something like this existed. And Doc, Talk to me about this guy. It looks like we've got 2 entrances. We've got a bunch of wood on either side of it. Walk us through this.
So it's basically just a double door box trap.
Okay.
Pretty simple to build, or you could go online and buy them.
Okay.
There's no such thing as armadillo bait or lure. You could buy it, but don't. It doesn't work. There's no proven effectiveness of it. There is some evidence that an experienced trap is more likely to catch an armadillo than an inexperienced trap. So you got to get that first armadillo to get your trap some experience.
So that's what you mean by that. The experience level of the trap means he's got some scent.
He's got scent in it.
Okay,
right,
and the armadillos are sensing that, coming in to see what's going on.
Right.
Okay, so how's this going to work? How's this going to catch
Well,
him?
the armadillo is going to be foraging in the yard, and he's going to run into this fence, and,
Okay.
and it's a funnel fence. And of course, he's got a 50-50 chance of going towards your trap or going the other way.
Right.
So you want to put it in your yard so that he's going to have to come towards the trap eventually. It's funneling him into the trap.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use a stick to demonstrate what's going on. There's this trip mechanism here in the center with 2 strings, or 1 string going to both doors.
Okay.
And when he goes in, he's going to hit that, and the doors are going to close just like that, and he's going to be stuck in there.
Now, for the folks at home, there's an armadillo in here. What do you recommend we do? Trap and relocate, or what do you think?
I never recommend relocating. That's just moving the problem somewhere else, and that's never a good thing for the animals where you're moving them or the animal that you are moving.
I got you.
Lethal control, dispatch the animal, bury him, and be done with it.
Thanks for today. I so appreciate it, Mike. Everybody, I so appreciate you for watching. I hope you learned something today as well. You know what to do? Hop online, check out the Farm Monitor Facebook page and see what's going on there. Check out the Ranger Nick Facebook page. And until next time, as we always say, Dr. Manjack, I'm Ranger Nick, reminding you enthusiasm is contagious. So pass it on. Y'all, thanks so much. We'll see you back here again next month. See ya.
Well, from one invasive creature to another. When we come back, see for yourself the havoc invasive feral swine wreak on peanut farms in Georgia and the heartbreaking impact they have on nesting sea turtles of Cumberland Island.
Feral swine are not supposed to be here. They're abundant everywhere in the state of Georgia. They are very adaptable species. Their survivability is uncanny, and the reproductive rate is not matched by any mammal their size or bigger. So when you include all 3 of those items, they are the perfect, ultimate invasive species.
We're in Newton, Georgia. They're real hot right now.
Oh yeah, that's
You want 1 bag? Yeah, the peanuts are good for you. Yeah, yeah. You don't boil them, you can bake them, fry them. There's a lot of ways to do them. I like to boil, you know. I like bake, I like them all.
Georgia peanuts are worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the state's economy and tens of thousands of jobs. When I was a kid growing up, seeing a wild hog was almost non-existent. You just never saw them, and now it's just so common. If a hog destroys an acre of peanuts, then we've lost 5,000 pounds. Ergo, 5,000 jars of peanut butter aren't hitting the grocery store shelves. Yeah, you'll leave a peanut field freshly planted at night and come back the next morning and it's just destroyed.
Pigs cause a lot of damage to the producers, particularly during this time of year, during the planting season. They wreak havoc on these peanuts. A lot of times these farmers, it's a song that gets played over and over on repeat throughout Georgia, where farmers are having to replant because the pigs are coming out and following that planter. They got a better GPS than the tractor itself and pick up each individual little seed kernel.
You're timing it to plant it at the right time, and when those hogs come in and destroy that crop that you've planted, they're destroying the timing, that not only all the effort that you've put into getting that crop planted, but the timing and the moisture that you have in the soils to get the crop growing taper off with the damage, you know what I mean? So you can cross the rows as you need to. So when we're faced with a replant scenario from the feral hog damage, it's timing issue, it's a huge labor and equipment issue, it's land preparation issue, it's thousands of dollars to replant a crop. To have a crop like that being destroyed by a non-native invasive species is frustrating.
USDA Wildlife Services is trying to be very, very aggressive and proactive in providing these guys assistance through operational control. You know, here in Georgia, pigs are showing up in areas where they've never historically been. That wasn't a natural range expansion or migration, if you will. That was 100% done for hunting opportunities. It's so important to incorporate other techniques such as large crowd-style trapping, where you can target that entire family group. You can have multi-generational effects by removing 14, 15, 16, 20, 30 pigs at one time versus 2 or 3. It's imperative, if you're going to be effective to control feral swine, you've got to incorporate an integrated approach. Recreational sport hunting will never control the problem we have in the state of Georgia.
Cumberland Island National Seashore is the largest barrier island in the coast of Georgia. It's 36,000 acres of land when you count wetlands and uplands. It became a national seashore in 1972. National Park Service owns and manages it. Typical morning, I'll be up before dawn. I try to leave the waterfront in St. Mary's right at dawn to get across about a 15-minute ride down the St. Mary's River over to the south end of the island. In the 1990s on Cumberland, there were high feral swine numbers. The loss of sea turtle nests in that decade was extremely high. 2000, it peaked at 67% of the nests were hit. And so that triggered the Park Service to do an interagency agreement with Wildlife Services at the time. This is where she crawled out of the water to go up to nest, and then the marks here is where she came back and went back to the ocean. So we're just going to follow the crawl up and try to determine how she did when she laid the nest here. Sea turtles are an indicator of overall health of the ocean system. Huge effort, especially in the United States, and that's kind of taken over into other countries to protect, monitor, and protect their nesting. Female's going to nest roughly 6 times in the summer. It'll be about 2 weeks between each nest. And so our early nest will have anywhere from 100 to maybe 140, 160. Usually her last nest might have as few as, say, 40 or 60 eggs in it. During the nesting season, we need somebody on the beach every day from basically the 1st of May through the middle of October. So this nest will be marked. It'll be screened for predator control or predator protection. Predators out here are typically feral hogs, raccoons, coyotes, typically diggers. And so that screen will stay on the nest. Incubation period on average is 55 to 60 days, so the screen will stay on this nest until it hatches. And knowing what was here in the 90s and when we first started in 2000, and then comparing that to now, the hog population is almost insignificant now. And so I'm really proud of the fact that this project has shown significant results as far as almost eliminating the level of hog predation on sea turtle nests.
Well, the realistic goal is to suppress damage for agriculture producers and reduce those impacts to native species. So our hope, if we want the habitat to revert back to its native state, reduce the competition from these exotic species to native species, we hope to reduce those populations and reduce that damage.
We stop our efforts, the hogs are going to come back and continue. It's a huge cooperative effort between landowners, between the USDA Wildlife Services guys. It just takes a big effort to combat what these hogs can do to you.
Wow, phenomenal piece, and our thanks to USDA and everyone involved for allowing us to air it here on the show. And as always, our thanks to you, the viewers, for making the Monitor possible.
Yes, thank you indeed. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on the Farm Monitor. Stay safe and have a good week.